Last time we left you in sunny Broome.
This time we are going to South Africa.
In this trip we will fly from Melbourne to Johannesburg with a quick stop over in Perth.
We will take a scenic drive to Kruger National Park. Along the way, staying at Hoedspruit Endangered Species Centre and Cheetah Sanctuary.
We will then spend 11 days exploring the Kruger National Park, whilst staying at 3 different accommodation sites.
And finally, we will be flying down to Cape Town, where we will stay for a week before heading back home to Australia.
Why don't you come and take a look at our first accommodation in South Africa? Through here we have our luxurious living room. We now have our spacious dining room. And through here we have the kitchen.
And along here we have our bedrooms, and there's also a bedroom in there. And then we have an amazing outside. Where we have a pool.
Thought that up front we should address the elephant in the room, safety. Fortunately, we did not experience any issues in Johannesburg. However, everywhere you turned, we were reminded of the higher level of crime-related risk.
For example, we went on a morning run in an area that is considered fairly safe. But if you paid close attention to the houses in the street, they all have high walls, barbed wire, and electric fences.
Also, as we drove down the main highway, we could see gated communities everywhere.
These are clusters of houses that are built like a protected castle. All they need is a crocodile-filled moat.
We also found that published statistics did not provide any reassurance. For example, in a 2017 survey, it was reported that in the Johannesburg wider area, on average 52 people were murdered each day, adding up to a total of over 19,000 people murdered during that year.
When we met with some of the locals, their stories also confirmed the risk. And to add to it, they also told us that Johannesburg is the world capital for lightning strikes.
They even have their sporting grounds set up with lightning storm sirens, and they use a smartphone app to receive alerts, similar to what we use in Australia for fire alerts. Now that we have covered the scary part of Johannesburg, let's look at the positive side. First of all, talking about statistics, some of you might want to know some interesting facts. The city resides on 1,700 metres above sea level. So, as the area is less dense than our home in Melbourne, it takes a minute longer to boil an egg. With a population of 5.6 million, Johannesburg is the world's largest city that isn't located near a coastline or accessible river. As they then need to rely on roads and railways for imports and exports, they ended up building the biggest dry port in the world, their train station. 40% of all of the world's human ancestor fossils have been discovered in and around Johannesburg. And with 10 million planted trees, it has the biggest man-made forest in the world.
To Today we are going on a tour of Soweto, which is one of the poorest parts in Johannesburg. But first we are stopping off at the FNB Stadium.
I'm not sure if we mentioned it before, but this trip was only possible because our friends offered for us to join them on their trip to South Africa.
Now what we're going to see is the ugly side of the township. Okay, so in front of us what we have is an informal settlement. The people that live here, they are on the waiting list for the government to build them houses. However, some of them have been waiting for more than 20 years.
What I loved was meeting other children that lived in Soweto. I found them to be very friendly and they very quickly showed us around their home. This water point services 10,000 local residents.
Everyone in Soweto was very friendly and smiley. The Hector Peterson Museum is located in Soweto. It was named after a 12-year-old boy who in 1976 was shot dead by police whilst walking home from school through an area where black students were involved in what was meant to be a peaceful protest.
We've just been inside the Hector Peterson Museum. He is a symbol of the youth who gave their lives for democracy and freedom. This is a picture of the day he died.
I found the violence shown by the photos was very upsetting. I do not understand how people can be so cruel to one another. We're about to go inside Nelson Mandela's house.
Nelson Mandela spent 27 years in prison for his involvement in the campaign to achieve equality for black Africans. In 1994, he became the first ever black head of state in South Africa.
I was amazed as to how small the house was and how happy Mandela and his family looked in the photos, even though they had a very tough life.
Next, we went to the Apartheid Museum. Apartheid was the system put in place by the South African government between 1948 and the early 1990s. They forcibly separated people into two groups, white and non-whites. This was based on the colour of their skin and facial features. So, the government officials would decide where you lived based on the way you looked. I read of stories where families were broken apart and told to live in separate areas simply because one member looked more like one race than the other family members did.
Mandela's first television interview.
I found many photos and videos upsetting. I do not understand why people were so mean to others simply because the colour of their skin was different. I'm glad that people like Nelson Mandela stood up for people's rights and were able to make a difference. On a positive note, Dad used the time to teach me more about photography.
The museum was huge and very pretty. I also found myself drawn to the individual stories that were being told via all of the photos, information boards and videos. On another day, we went to see the Cradle of Humankind. This was another amazing experience for completely different reasons.
Today we are at the Cradle of Humankind, and we are also going to visit some caves.
The Cradle of Humankind is where they believe all humans originated from, because they have found the oldest human remains on Earth here in Africa.
Ancestors were able to use and control fire at least 1 million years ago in the Cradle of Humankind.
The first stone tools were made and used in Africa around 2.6 million years ago.
Hominids, the ancestors of modern humans, first emerged about 7 million years ago in Africa.
As time goes by, I'm a raindrop on the blue coast. As time goes by, I'm a blink of an eye.
Once inside the main building, we started walking down a spiraling corridor, taking us underground.
I'm a stranger caught in a snapshot frame.
Along the way, we got to read a lot of interesting facts about the history of Earth and mankind.
We're now in a cave.
And watch you smile. Empires rose and fell.
The cave showed us the various ages of the Earth. Unfortunately, it was too dark to film them.
Melted into sand. And watch you smile.
After the cave, we entered an enormous area that had loads of interactive activities which walked us through the evolution of humankind. I could have stayed here all day.
As time goes by,
Next, we drove a very short distance to visit the Sterkfontein Caves. These caves are famous as several human fossils have been found within them, including one over 3 million years old.
After a very short wait in the museum section, we proceeded to the cave with a tour guide.
as time goes.
We then started going deep into the belly of the cave, down to 60 metres below ground level.
Goes by. I'm a blink of an eye in the sunshine. As time goes by, I'm a stranger caught in a snapshot frame.
In one of the chambers called Milner Hall, we saw a very deep lake. To date, nobody knows how deep it is.
The caves varied in sizes, with some being very big, whilst others needing us to move through on our knees. Certainly not a place for those who suffer from claustrophobia. We just went through a cave and we had to duck down in lots of spaces because we were in very tight spaces, and it was heaps of fun and a great adventure.
The tour guide knew lots about the caves and also kept on making everyone laugh with his jokes.
In summary, we found Johannesburg to be a mixture of emotions and experiences. Scary, sad, educational, inspirational, happy, fun, and definitely memorable.
Now at the famous Puppuccinos.